We can go into a small village in Africa that has no money, unbelievably poor, and we can create a system of agriculture, a system of manufacturing, which can change these people's lives.
For an Ethiopian farmer, harvesting an acre of wheat requires 30 days of labor. The wheat needs to be harvested in about a 10-day period, so they can't create too large of fields without some machinery to help them.
Tillers equips agents of change of their native cultures.
I really like working with Maza because he's one of our most experienced trainers in Mozambique. Every 2 weeks he goes out into the field and trains another group of farmers and teaches them about yoke making and how to train the oxen and how to feed and care for the animals. And we have a yoke that we're holding here, and Maza put this one together this summer here. It's an example of one of the yokes that he would have made with some of the farmers that he trains in Mozambique. It's quite a small yoke that we have here. A lot of times when you start training, if you can start training animals at a younger age, it's easier, less stressful for the animals. You're not expecting them to pull as much, but you're just teaching them the basic commands, how to turn, how to stop, how to go forward, how to back up.
To make a yoke, I'm going on a corral to make a neck of my animal.
So you need to know how big the animal is.
Yeah, how is it big? But first of all, you made the yoke how many centimeters?
On the workbench here, we've got a wide range of different sizes of yokes. Yokes are kind of like shoes. You outgrow them. Tillers likes to train animals starting at a younger age, and so we have to start with a much smaller yoke. The smallest yoke here at the end of the table is probably about a 5-inch yoke. The bow width is how we size a yoke. This would be a 5-inch yoke, 6-inch yoke, 7-inch yoke, and an 8-inch yoke. So as the animals grow, you need to progressively move them through different sizes of yokes. This is almost right. It might be just a little too big, but it's pretty close in size here. I can fit my hand in here comfortably. So with an 8-inch yoke, and this yoke has got bows that contain or hold the animals in position. It has a deeply carved neck seat here that gives the animal a smooth place to push against with their neck. And it has, a good yoke will have a deep belly like this one down in the center, so that as the animals are pulling, on the ring down here for the chain, as the animals pull, the yoke will actually rotate back into the necks of the animals. So as they're pushing with the yoke, they're not only pushing on the yoke beam, but they're also pushing with their shoulders against the bows of the yoke. Do the farmers there use any power tools to make their yoke?
They use only chisel. Yeah.
So it's all hand tool work.
Hand, yes.
Here at our farmstead in Scotts, Michigan, we train ourselves and train individuals to use these methods and materials to do this kind of work.
To understand Tiller's mission of animal mechanization and farming, one begins with the making of an ox yoke.
We have a beam here that we're going to use to make an ox yoke, and the size of the ox yoke that we're going to make is going to be an 8-inch yoke. Again, the size of an ox yoke is measured by the distance between the bows, the space that the oxen's neck can fit into here. And there's another critical measurement that we're going to make here. We're going to be laying out where those holes are drilled in this beam, but usually when we space the oxen apart, we take a measurement of 2.5 times whatever the bow width is. So if you've got an 8-inch bow width, you multiply that by 2.5, you get 16 plus 4 would be 20 inches. So the space between the first two holes that I'm going to mark out on the yoke here is going to be 20 inches, 2.5 times the bow width.
The craft of yoke making precedes the use of electric power tools. There's nothing sacred about man-powered carpentry, but to successfully carve a yoke from wood by hand and by use of American 19th century innovations is a cause for hope and a catalyst of achievement in places where electric and gas-powered tools are not yet practical or available. Dick Rusenberg attributes the genesis of tillers to 1969, the year that as a graduate student and volunteer in the Peace Corps, he was assigned to a country in West Africa.
I was there for 3 years. I worked very closely with the farmers. As an extension agent, I spent most of my time with a subgroup of 30 farmers who were the initial group, so I knew their weekly, monthly changes through the year, and was paying close attention to that, trying to figure out both what problems they were having and what we weren't doing well enough. The farmers went for animal power very well, and that has driven my interest ever since, and the stories of it have fueled the interest and the drive of a number of other people.
Though his first work was a success, Dick knew it fell short of what was possible.
None of us knew the depth of knowledge that our great-grandparents did, and we knew that. We knew that we didn't know how to teach voice commands to oxen. We knew we didn't know a lot of the machinery that might be used, how to make that machinery, and a number of those things.
One of the really fascinating things with what we do here at Tillers is we take simple materials, simple processes, and we can create and recreate some very useful tools and techniques, and we're helping people.
The beginnings were modest, but powerful.
Those West African farmers were quite satisfied to be standing up behind a plow and having one of their sons or daughters leading the pair of oxen from their noses.
Dick was inspired. Now the question was how to inspire a movement.
And I thought, we have to create some institutionalized means and experiment with some of these things. Not that we need to export American Midwestern technology over to developing countries, but that we need to help them innovate and pick out what works for them and what doesn't.
If a farmer has the ability to repair his equipment, he can keep the equipment working at all times. And things invariably break. Every piece of equipment sooner or later wears out or breaks and requires maintenance. If the farmer has to take it to a distant city, it becomes quite a project, and frequently things just don't get repaired. So the farm community will generally, given the skills, will find some person in the community that will develop those skills to do the repairs. And where we travel in Africa, there's always someone in the neighborhood that has some of those skills.
The risks to farmers in sub-Saharan Africa are enormous. There is no forgiveness for an error in judgment. Their rainy season is 5 months in each year. That's it. What they can grow and harvest during that period is what they, their family, and their livestock will live on for the remaining 7 months.
For the African farmer, all the important issues have to do with daily existence. The African farmer lives constantly in the awareness of risk.
The West African farmers were still using hand hoe technology. They plowed their fields with a hand hoe. It would take 30 to 40 days to plow an acre. It is a tremendous amount of work. You have to get out there at 5 o'clock in the morning so you can get something done before it gets too hot. And it is extremely energy intensive. What we were offering was a plow that you walked the furrow and plowed the field.
There is a typical Western misperception that motorized farm mechanization, such as the use of tractors, would level the playing field of agricultural practices in third world countries. But it just does not work that way.
Tiller's mission is to spawn an environment of innovation.
This is a McCormick reaper invented in 1831. It allowed them to do up to 5 acres in a day all of a sudden. That was the work between a blacksmith in the village and a farmer outside of the village that occurred back and forth over 10 years of refinement.
The things that we're teaching fill in gaps that they don't have. So they can do some work, but basic blacksmithing skills involve hardening and tempering and forming the metal in ways that they may not have ever had a chance to learn. So that's the types of things that we're teaching.
Tiller's encourages the African farmer to discover the true potential of resources that are at hand.
To us, local sustainability is the key to any long-standing solution. Whatever is going to succeed today and tomorrow and next year will only be possible if all the critical resources are right there in that local community.
Tiller's trains and assembles groups of experts from opposite sides of the world to inspire local innovation in African farming
The
communities.
tools that we had for baling hay, making hay, and making silage are very important. They provide low-cost options for them to use.
In the past decades, Tiller's has partnered with several African nations. They work together to inspire small farmers and nearby local artisans to become innovative, entrepreneurial, and sustainable farming communities.
We're here in Burkina Faso on a project working with the USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, and it's a mechanization project. Our efforts here are primarily conservation tillage.
In Burkina Faso, Tiller's partners with the country's agricultural university to educate future extension agents in processes for training oxen for animal-powered mechanization.
As a person who has been working with animals after Dr. Arigan returned to the United States, I found that the major challenge is to create a good communication between the one who is training the animals and the animals so they can understand the command you give to them. And it takes time. This project is very welcome in our university because we have very practical training problems. It's a gap. And this project is bringing a new approach when students have to experience contact with tools, contact with animals, and it integrates many things. We live in a country that materials are very difficult to acquire, and people don't know the right material for their farm and how to efficiently use the materials. That's a big problem.
Tiller's is dedicated to introducing the concept of economic growth of small agricultural farmer and artisan communities.
We had a special workshop for our local blacksmiths.
You are a very key component, very important part of our project and our success here in Burkina Faso.
The process of accurate communication is challenging. Tiller's field director, Rob Burdick, translates Tim Harrigan's words into French. Then, one of the Agricultural University graduate students translates the message into the local dialect. Blacksmith responses are communicated in reverse order. All of the persons involved are patient and working through each point. Everyone understands the important bottom line. The local blacksmith and the small farmer share the opportunity of innovative solutions to their unique local challenges. In a harsh, risk-adverse environment, greater financial stability is possible.
And we need to convey that to make sure that everyone knows how to continue this process of innovation and develop this attitude of experimentation.
The sub-Saharan rainy season is unforgivingly short. Tiller's knows that asking farmers who make about $1 a day to risk a new farming process, adaptation to animal mechanization, is expecting a lot.
We just started the raining season right now, and he's seeing some innovation in the experimental farms when people are using tools to disturb minimally the soil, when people are using mechanized tool to do the work, and that's very good for him to see such improvement on his farm.
We're using a GoPro camera. We're mounting it very close to some of the soil interaction tools so that we can see exactly what's happening as the soil conditions change. We're also using a pull meter. We want to know what is the draft, what is the pulling force required for these tools. If we ask too much of our animals, if we overload them with tools and work that is too heavy, they get very difficult to handle.
Tillers brings hope through innovation. Highly significant are the changing opportunities for women.
They're key actors in the planting. They're primarily hand planting. We're working hard to get them involved in the process of building yokes, improving how to get better control, how to work with animals that are gentle and responsive. And we think if we can do that, that's a way that's going to really help solve some of the issues regarding gender equity and some of the challenges that women face here.
With the help of Agricultural University grad students, Tillers Field Director Rob Burdick meets with city elders in nearby Bobo Dioulasso to listen and learn about critical and sacred aspects of local culture. Tillers is greatly committed to its solutions based largely upon 19th century American agricultural mechanization, but never at the price of damaging the fabric of a culture. Over the decades since Richard Rusenberg's first African Peace Corps assignment, Tillers' primary mission remains unchanged: to collaborate with small-scale farmers in developing countries to improve food security in their local communities. The work is international, but is based upon the ongoing and growing interest in animal mechanization in the United States. Every year, Tillers experts offer hands-on classes in farming with draft horses, woodworking, blacksmithing, barrel making, tinsmithing, timber framing, tool making, and other traditional skills. Through these classes, Tillers attracts men and women of all ages and backgrounds to its headquarters in Scotts, Michigan. Some come from rural areas and some from bustling inner cities. They all share interest in the use of hand tools, nostalgia, and a sense of accomplishment of doing something the old-school way. And from that, occasionally, some young women and men are attracted to Tillers' apprenticeship program. Richard Rusenberg's vision lives on.
And I thought, we have to create some institutionalized means or bridging past generation and their skills to young people who can move back and forth between continents.